The world is kind of crazy right now, and if you're watching this video, I bet you've been affected by it in a severe way. There are layoffs happening left and right, and so many people are out of work. I feel for you. It's gotta be stressful. So in today's video, we're going to talk all about EI in Canada, who qualifies for it, what you need to apply, and how to actually get it. Welcome to the Ready Set Life YouTube channel. My name is Brittany and I am a millennial financial coach who makes videos all about taking the fear out of finance. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos every other Thursday and you don't want to miss them. For context, I'm making this video in the height of a certain health emergency. I'm not going to name it because YouTube is flagging it, but you all know what I'm talking about. This means that society has basically shut down. By this point, the majority of the provinces have announced shutdowns of all non-essential business. This means that thousands of people are out of work, laid off through no fault of their own. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit general so that if people are watching it after the fact, they'll have relevant information. But just know that that's the situation I'm sitting in right now. So we're definitely going to reference it because it's a big deal. Anyways, let's get right down to it. EI stands for Employment Insurance. It's a social welfare program in Canada that you can receive during a span of unemployment. Usually it's when someone gets laid off or they're in that in-between jobs phase. Sometimes it's used on a more regular basis too. For example, supply teachers often use it in the summer months, or seasonal workers can use it during the off-season, like wintertime for roofers or fishermen. The key is it's for people who lose their job through no fault of their own. And that's important because if you choose to quit or get fired with just cause, then you won't be eligible. The amount you receive and whether you're able to get it depends on a lot of specific factors. It's also only given during a specific and limited amount of time. So if you're hoping to apply for it and live off it indefinitely, you're out of luck. So let's talk about what makes you eligible for EI. You might be eligible for EI if you are employed in insurable employment, you lost your job through no fault of your own, you've been without work and without pay for at least 7 consecutive days in the last 52 weeks, you've worked for the required number of insurable employment hours in the last 52 weeks, or since the last start of your EI claim. If you're ready, willing, and capable of working every day, and you're actively looking for work. You might not be eligible for EI if you voluntarily left your job without just cause, i.e. you quit, you were dismissed for misconduct, i.e. you were fired, you're unemployed because you are directly participating in a labor dispute, so for example a strike, a lockout, or other type of conflict, or if you're in a period of leave that compensates for a period in which you worked under an agreement with your employer for more hours that are normally worked in full-time employment. You also can't get EI if you're applying while incarcerated. However, if you're later found not guilty of that crime, you might be able to recoup some of those benefits. I'm going to assume that's a very specific situation that not many people are in, so I'm going to leave a link down below, but I won't explain it that much. Basically, you just have to show the government proof that that happened, and you're probably good. Eligibility for EI also depends on your specific situation. Surprisingly, the Government of Canada doesn't actually supplement EI payments. Since 1990, it's all dependent on what you specifically put in. Now, I didn't know about this starting to research for this video, so it's actually quite interesting to me. Given the current situation, I don't know if this will change. There will be a large volume of people applying for EI, so they might have to put something towards it. I assume the cash flow of all this will need some work, but I plan on making another video specifically about the new government benefits offered in the Canadian Emergency Response Plan as well, so I'll link that up above. If you're watching this video after that's been published, maybe I'll have additional answers in there. I've decided to put insurable employment hours in its own category because yes, it's an eligibility requirement, but it kind of cascades to affect everything else, so I want to be able to explain it clearly. In order to receive EI, you need to have a certain amount of insurable employment hours. Insurable employment hours are basically hours that you've worked that can fit a specific criteria. For example, it would have to be legal work in Canada, like you've given them your SIN number and they give you a T4 or a record of employment when you leave. You'll also need to be paying into the benefits, like they've been taking taxes off of your paycheck. EI is required to be one of those taxes. For most people, this would generally be the case. If you're working a regular job, you're probably working insurable hours. If you're not sure whether you've worked insurable hours, I'm going to link a few websites down below that explain exactly what the differences are between each situation. I don't want to make this video super long, so hopefully you can find that on your own. But the thing I do want to mention is that if you're a freelancer or an independent contractor or you're otherwise self-employed, you're probably not eligible. Again, I'm going to link the site that explains all that, but it's a different website than the one that explains what insurable hours are, so make sure that you read both. To be eligible for EI, you need between 400 and 700 insurable hours. These hours must have been completed within the qualifying period. This is the 52 weeks immediately before your claim or from the start of a previous benefit period to the start of your new benefit period, whichever is shorter. So if you haven't applied for benefits in the last 52 weeks, then it'll be 52 weeks. But if you applied for benefits before and your claim was approved within the last 52 weeks, then it would be that second option. Also, for my fellow non-math people, 52 weeks is about 11.9 months, so basically within the past year. They also do note that in some cases, the qualifying period may be extended to a maximum of 104 weeks. That's about 2 years, if you were not employed in insurable employment or if you were not receiving EI benefits. I think that means that if you had a regular full-time job and then got laid off and decided to freelance for a year, you might actually be still eligible for EI if you didn't apply for it before. Those are sort of unique situations that obviously I don't have the full answers to. I could be completely wrong on it, but reading it, it does sound to be the case, so I definitely call them and ask. Now, let's go back to that you need 400 to 700 insurable employment hours to be eligible for EI. The exact amount of hours depends on where you're located. It seems a little bit weird, but bear with me. It's based on the unemployment rate, and that ranges depending on the location. So here's the chart of how many hours are required for each rate. Feel free to take a pause, take a little screenshot, take some notes, whatever. To figure out what the rate is in your area, the government has a super easy little calculator. I'll leave the link below. You just put in your postal code and they just give you all the answers. Until you're approved for EI, you won't know the exact amount that you're going to receive, which I know can be tough. You're already in a stressful situation and you want to be able to plan ahead in managing your expenses. But hopefully the specifications that they do give will help you get a little bit of closure on what could happen. So for most people, they say the basic rate is 55% of your average insurable weekly earnings. So remember those insurable employment hours we talked about? Whatever you are paid during that time is going to be the salary that they're going to go off of. There is, however, a maximum of this. So as of January 1st, 2020, it's $54,200. So the maximum that you would be able to receive per week is $573. And you can receive this from 14 weeks, about 3 months, to a maximum of 45 weeks, to about 10 months. Again, the amount of time that you're eligible to receive EI depends on your insurable hours, as well as the unemployment rate in your area. The chart is way too large to screenshot, but again, I'll leave a link to that down below. In order to calculate how much EI you're going to be receiving, the government takes the weeks where you've earned the most money, called your best weeks, and divides it by what they call the divisor, which is based on the unemployment rate of your area. Again, I'm going to link where you can find the unemployment rates down below. But here's the chart where you can see how many weeks qualify for which unemployment rate. Once they figure out these two numbers, they're going to divide the total insurable earnings by the number of best weeks required. And once they get that, they're going to multiply that by 55%, or 0.55, to get the actual payment that you're going to receive during your unemployment period. For example, say that you live in downtown Toronto. That means that your unemployment rate is 5.4%. And therefore, according to the chart that I just showed, you're going to be looking at an average of your best 22 weeks. You comb over your qualifying hours, that's within the last 52 weeks, and find your best 22 weeks. And during those weeks, you made a total of $16,300. This means that we need to divide $16,300 by 22. And this gives us $740. So we're going to take that $740 and multiply that by 0.55 to figure out what 55% is, and in total, that means that you're going to be paid $407 per week on EI. Now, I know that's super complicated to figure out. I am definitely not a math person, so it took me a long while to really sit and wrap my mind around it. But if you really want to figure it out for yourself, there are a few other examples that the Government of Canada gives. So I'm going to link them down below and you can review them for yourself. Really, the government is going to do all of this for you. You won't actually need to know how this is calculated if you're applying for yourself. But this does give you an idea of how they're figuring it out for themselves. Or if you're really ambitious, approximately how much you might get so you can plan for your future. This one's pretty easy. You can just apply for EI online. As always, I'm going to have a link for this down below, but before you apply, there are things that you need to make sure that you have. Your social insurance number, your mother's maiden name, your mailing and residential addresses, your complete banking information to sign up for direct deposit, including the financial institution name, bank branch number, and account number, names, addresses, dates of employment, and reason for separation from all your employers over the last 52 weeks, your detailed version of the facts if you quit or have been dismissed from any job in the last 52 weeks, the dates from Sunday to Saturday, and earnings for each of your highest paid weeks of insurable earnings. And if your SIN number begins with a 9, you need to supply proof of your immigration status and work permit as well. And a few additional tips. Your bank usually has a spot within your online banking profile. If you search direct deposit, you'll be able to download a PDF of that form that includes all the information that you need. You don't actually need a checking account or a blank check to get this information, though it is found on those documents if you have those as well. Again, you're not going to qualify for EI if you are fired with just cause. So, those detailed version of facts is going to be really important for you if that's the case. Government of Canada is also going to be looking at your record of employment, or ROEs, from those positions, which will list from your employer's perspective whether you were fired or whether you quit. So when you're applying for EI, it's going to be your chance to say your side of the events. If you were fired, make sure you list all the facts from your side. If you don't think it was justified, prove that. If you quit for a specific reason, like you were treated unfairly or your job description was changed dramatically, which caused you to leave, that's important. On your ROE, it's going to list that you quit, but this is your chance to tell your side. There are some exceptions on whether EI can qualify in certain situations. Do not lie on your application. That's important. It's a crime to lie on these applications. But there are certain scenarios in which the government might give you a pass on being quit or fired. As always, I'm going to leave a lot of links explaining all of this down below. But just know that this is your chance to explain things from your point of view. So you want to be as clear and professional as you can with explaining the exact reasoning from your perspective. It might mean the difference between you qualifying or not. After you apply for EI, you're going to get a letter in the mail. This is going to contain information on how to access your online file for reporting. You get this letter whether you've been approved or not, so getting this letter does not count as your approval notice. If you're not eligible for EI, they're going to let you know by telephone or by letter to tell you why. You can dispute this claim by requesting a reconsideration. Again, all of this can be done online. I'm going to leave a link for that down below. If you are eligible for EI, you're going to receive your first payment within 28 days of the date that the government receives all the required documentation. You're also going to be subject to a 1-week waiting period. Now, I have looked everywhere to find information on this waiting period. I have no idea why it exists. The easiest explanation that I could find is from the government itself. It explains it as like the deductible that you pay for other insurance. So I guess that makes sense. There has to be some sort of reasonable explanation on why this exists. I just wish they were clearer about it. But regardless of that, why it's important here and what you need to know about it is that you're going to get this notice that you're approved, and then you're going to have to wait 1 week until that money actually hits your account. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it could really mess things up depending on where that week falls within your cash flow. If you're waiting on that money to, say, pay your rent, that's going to make a big difference for you. So it's not something that we can change, but something important to keep in mind. It also means that in total, you're going to get 1 week less than what you were approved for. So say you're approved for 14 weeks, you're actually only going to get 13 weeks of that pay in total. And one more thing to note here, during this health crisis, you know what I'm talking about, the government has actually waived that waiting period. So if you're applying within the first few months of this video going live, you might receive your first payment as soon as your application is processed. Hopefully that makes things a bit easier for you. Let's say you've gone through this whole process and you've been approved for EI. Now what? While on EI, you have a few responsibilities. They're listed in detail in the links below, but essentially you have to be ready and able to work, you have to be job searching, and you have to report your earnings, if any. In order to prove this, you need to complete bi-weekly reporting. This means that every 2 weeks you have to submit something that basically updates the government that you're complying with all the requirements of EI and that nothing has changed. You can submit these reports in 3 ways: by phone, by paper or mail, and internet reporting. For this video, I'm going to explain the internet submitting. I assume that's going to be the most popular, but just know that there are other ways to do it if you need them. Now, I mentioned receiving a letter in the mail with that special code. It's important that you keep that because you're going to need that and your SIN number to log into your account. If you already have access to your My Service Canada account, you're not going to need this code. This is the place that you go to see if your taxes have been filed properly or how much contribution room is left in your TFSA or RSP. If you're on any federal benefits, this is sort of your dashboard for it all. So you've likely already seen this portal. I've never personally been on EI. There are times in my life where I probably could have and should have been, but I didn't. So it's hard to find screenshots of what this report actually looks like. I did find one blogger from personalfinancefreedom.com who had some excellent screenshots on their site. I'm going to link it down below if you want to reference it, but keep in mind it's halfway down the page. So when you're looking at it, just scroll like a long way. I mean, you can read the article, of course. It's actually quite good, but it's much the same information that I'm saying here, so you won't need to. Alright, now we're almost at the end. I know this video is probably so long, but hang in there. Now we're going to talk about what happens after EI. An EI claim will end if you receive all the benefits to which you are entitled, the payment time frame in which you can receive benefits ends, you stop filing your biweekly report, or you request a termination of your claim to file a new claim. It will also stop if you find work before your EI end date. So if you're filling out your reports and you tell them that you've got a new job, then they're going to stop the payments. It's also important here that you must tell them if you got a job. I said it before and I'll say it again. It's illegal to lie on these forms and applications. If you misrepresent something or lie by omission, it's considered fraud. You can face legal and monetary penalties if you're not properly complying with all of these requirements. Now, say you made a mistake and you report something like you thought you worked 10 hours, but you actually worked 15. It's not the end of the world. Don't freak out. But you do have to let them know about the change. During regular life, you can visit a Service Canada location or call them at the 1-800 number. But we all know these times are a little bit weird right now, so with everything closed, you're going to be calling. They're open Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And the number is 1-800-206-7218. I've been keeping an eye on the buzz around all of this, and it seems like, understandably, the phones have a huge wait time. So it's kind of gonna suck if you have to wait on hold for hours to get this done, but again, it's fraud if you don't, so call them. You're going to want to do your due diligence and write down the time that you called, who you talked to, and what they told you. Just keep it somewhere in case. So when all this calms down and there's a potential issue, like mistakes happen, you're going to have a record that you did it. One more, and perhaps the most important thing in the video, is that I want to take a moment to acknowledge the mental aspect of all this. You've just done all this work learning everything you need to know about employment insurance. I know, if you've watched this entire video, it's going to be a long one. That's a commitment. First of all, thank you, because it's great for my channel growth, but second, let's just take a breath. This shit is tough. You are here because you don't have an income. Regardless of what your situation is, maybe you have kids to support, a partner or family or friends that rely on you, student loans to pay, you're in a situation that you never thought that you'd be in. You're dealing with a lot. Congratulate yourself that you even have the energy to be watching a video like this. Taking action on a situation like this requires an immense amount of courage, so recognize that. Give yourself a break. I know you need to hear that. Sometimes we jump into action on these situations because it's something we can throw ourselves into. But it's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry a little. Just take some time and sit in the sadness for a while. And remember, there is no shame in applying for social benefits. I mentioned earlier that there are times in my life where I could have and probably should have applied for EI. Part of me knows that I relied on my parents, my privilege in being born in a middle class and relatively stable situation where I could make that decision. But I know there's a part of me that didn't apply because I didn't want to be that person. EI to me was for people in a tough spot, but not for me, even though clearly I was in a tough spot and I completely would have been eligible for EI. EI is exactly for people in the situation that I was in, but I was ashamed of it. And now I'm ashamed that I ever even thought that way. So please know you've probably been paying into EI since you got your first job. You deserve these benefits. You're entitled to these benefits, and no one is going to judge you for receiving them. And if you do, it's because they have the problem. You are a smart, resourceful, and strong person. And I know that because you're taking action. You clicked on this YouTube video. So whatever situation caused you to lose your job, your work is seasonal, you've been laid off because your company is not doing well, there's a global health crisis that's shutting the world down, it does not mean that you are worthless. It does not mean that you're not skilled or intelligent or hardworking. You're just having a tough moment and you're going to get through it. I was going to put a special considerations section here because there are a few more things that I wanted to include that don't really apply to everyone, like if you've had EI violations in the past or what circumstances you have to pay EI back, but this video is extremely long. It's taken me over a week to research and it's probably the heaviest video that I've taken on so far. It's a lot more important that the information is actually out there than it is for me to keep researching and adding to it. So instead, I'm going to create an additional blog post on my website, readysetlifecoach.com. For anyone who doesn't know, I have a website. Usually I rework the scripts of my videos into the blog, so I don't generally mention it on my channel, but in this case, I think it would be a lot easier to make an additional post that I can keep updated with the current information, or unique situations that not everyone might need to reference. You might want to check it out anyway, because I do actually have a pretty awesome resources section, if I do say so myself, with budget templates and resources that can help you get your shit together when it comes to personal finance. But that being said, if you liked this video, give it a like. And if you know someone who is struggling and needs to know this information, please share it with them. If you want more information on how to manage your finances during this situation, or just in general, subscribe to this channel. I know I post less frequently than I would like, but you know when I do post, it's going to be a kick-butt, reliable video just like this one. So don't be afraid to hit that bell icon so you're notified when I put something out. Wishing you great financial health, and all of the regular health too. Stay safe, everyone. Bye. I should do that again. I'm so tongue-tied today. It's offered in the Canada. Again, I'm going to link on the splite. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. Oh my gosh, I'm saying that so fast. Displete. That's not the word. Okay, let's do it one more time. I only made 1,000,000 mistakes.